Bills Mafia. On tonight's Air Raid Hour post-game show, we will be diving into, I guess because we have to, all things Bills Rams. We've got the latest injury updates, major takeaways, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. This is a breakdown you won't want to miss. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in to the Air Raid Hour presented by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at The Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. The Buffalo Bills fall to 10-3 with a thrilling 44-42 loss to the LA Rams. The Buffalo Bills once again find themselves on the losing end of seemingly what everyone likes to call the game of the year. The Bills now stand 2 games back in their chase for the wild card as the Chiefs deal with Satan continues to pay dividends. Dave, what are your instant reactions here to the Buffalo Bills 44-42 loss?
Yeah, I'll just say this because it's after losses, it can be tough. The discourse online and just the back and forth can be tough. A lot of strong opinions, right, on either side. And I'll just say this: I'm not here to tell anyone how they should feel. If you want to feel upset, if you want to feel a certain way, by all means. If you want to feel the other way and like act like nothing's wrong and it's all good, then I'm cool with that too, right? So I guess what I'll say is like throughout this show tonight, I'm just going to kind of give you my opinion. It's not to say that you shouldn't feel a different way, or if you agree with me, that's fine too. But it's always tough after these types of losses because these are epic games. They're these game of the year style games. We've seemingly come out on the wrong side of these a few times. And it's tough. But at the end of the day, it is just a regular season game against a non-conference opponent. So while some of these other types of games have been, the Bills have come out on the wrong end, a couple of those other ones have been in the playoffs. And so at least for this one, it hasn't really derailed the Bills season in any way as far as like their ultimate goals. And so for those reasons, I'm going to probably take a fairly neutral tone on my responses to this one. And really, that's going to be my view, not telling you how to feel, not telling the comment section how to feel. That's kind of going to be how I come at this one.
Yeah, we got Ralph Wilson Sr. coming in with some great perspective. Says epic Monday Night Football battle between Linval Joseph and Cody Ford. So we could be fans of teams in far worse situations than the Buffalo Bills. So woe is us, and we're gonna rain on ourselves here tonight because 86 combined points, 12 touchdowns, 902 combined net yards, 0 turnovers, 0 sacks in this football game. Obviously there was the 13 seconds game years ago. There was the Philadelphia Eagles game last year. And now this year there is this epic offensive showdown between Matthew Stafford and Josh Allen. Allen going for 342 yards in the air, 82 on the ground, 6 total touchdowns, no turnovers. But again, the Bills always, and this is the frustrating part, and this is why I get why people are mad. Like, people are extremely mad online, and then I'm starting to get extremely mad at people for being extremely mad online and telling them to chill out. And then I seem like I actually don't really, care about what happened yesterday, which I do, right? And we're going to talk about it tonight, but it is frustrating, and I get it because the Bills always seem to waste some of Josh's most historic efforts.
Yeah, I mean, in the argument can be made that these historic efforts are coming in these super high scoring games, and other games where he's played really, really well maybe haven't been like these 44-42 type games. And so it's like, yes, it sucks to be on the losing end of these games where each of these teams puts up 6 touchdowns. Josh accounts for all 6 of the Bills' touchdowns in one form or another. And the reality is he gets up on that podium and says he needs to do better when we all know he's the literal last issue on this team at all. But he's the leader of this team, and he gets up there and says that to kind of fall on the sword for his defense that truly let him down. And a defense, to be frank, that has let this team down in the playoffs over the course of Josh Allen's career. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been some questionable offensive games in the playoff history of this team since Josh Allen's been here. We know the Bengals game from a few years ago was probably the low light of the Bills offense in the postseason, but for the most part, this Bills offense has showed up in the postseason. And for the most part this season, this team on both sides of the ball has showed up in large part for almost all games, outside of maybe the Texans game. You could say the offense maybe didn't show up, and in the Ravens game, maybe the defense. Otherwise, all 10 wins, really the offense and defense both has showed up. This one was interesting because really the offense did show up in this game, and the defense was the one who let them down, which has kind of been, I guess, at times in the past, sort of the opposite, where the offense has kind of been maybe stagnant and sort of had to come back into the game later on, and the defense has kind of kept the team in the game. This was the opposite. The defense did not keep this team in the game, and it was unfortunate that you waste a historic effort like this in a loss. But again, at the end of the day, there was nothing more I don't think Josh Allen could do in this game to get his team a win.
Yeah, it's crazy too, right? A lot of people pointed out on social media the difference between the way Josh Allen approaches a post-game press conference and the way somebody like Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers has got 15 people ready to throw under the bus. For a poor performance, Josh Allen with just an insane performance, and he's out there taking accountability. And there are things Josh could do to clean it up. I mean, I think Joe Marino did a great job pointing out, like, Josh Allen was nearly perfect, but he missed a wide open Mac Hollins on the same drive that Reed Ferguson got absolutely eaten alive. And there was that punt block for a touchdown that literally swung the game. Josh hits Mac Hollins, who knows how this game goes. The Buffalo Bills had a chance to double dip. They couldn't convert a 3rd and 2, which is something they're usually easily able to pick up on their last drive of the first half. And then on the second drive, they go 3 and out, right? And Allen misses a wide open Khalil Shakir. So you missed an opportunity to double dip. So was Josh perfect? No. Are there things he can work on and will work on? Yes. But at the end of the day, despite all 3 of those things that I just mentioned, the dude combined for almost 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, holy heck. All the defense needed to do was have a pulse. All Reed Ferguson had to do was stay on 2 feet, and we win this football game. It's just, that's the frustrating part. And I think a lot of people just, I get it.
Well, and also, right, like you talk about those couple plays, like, so Josh Allen was 99.9% out of 100% that you needed him and all you really needed maybe was 50% from the defense, and you got like 3% from them. So it's like, yes, like if Josh Allen had done everything exactly perfect on every single play, yes, maybe this team could have won, but you shouldn't have to need that. Like, look at last night with the Chiefs, and again, with them pulling it out of their ass in that win, Patrick Mahomes did not play a perfect game, didn't really even play a great game, I would say, and he was getting badgered all night from that Chargers defense. Like, it wasn't him needing to be 100% for the Chiefs to win that game, and they won the game. So, again, this gets back to the whole notion that wins are not a quarterback stat, and Josh has been on the losing end in some of these epic performances. Again, kind of proving out that wins truly are not a quarterback stat.
Yeah, I think Nate Geary had a great comment last night on social media too. He's like, they finally figured out the Buffalo Bills. All you have to do to beat Josh Allen is literally be perfect, because that's what the LA Rams were on offense. I mean, it was an absolute clinic that they put on, and we'll talk about that as the show progresses as well. But first, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza, and we're going to get that commercial rolling right now.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo Pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
That's what the people needed right now. They needed a little Khalil Shakir in their life. This episode is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza, 4 convenient locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's Pizza has been serving Buffalo's best pizza since 1980. Whether you are a local or across the country, you can enjoy their delicious pizza delivered fresh to your door. Just visit picassospizza.net and place your order today. Again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, Dave, let's get into it. Every week we sit here and we try to piece the games together, whether it is a Victory Monday or a Monday therapy session, which is what we have going for us this evening. But we always try to think of one takeaway, one big thing that we want to focus on in this game. For you, Dave, what is that one big thing?
Look, my one big thing in this game, and I know we're gonna have this talk down section, which is gonna actually have some content in it this week as opposed to last week. But my one big thing in this game is going to have to be Josh Allen. And I think his sort of ride to possibly his first MVP award. And I know at the end of the day, these individual awards probably don't mean anything to him in the sense that like his ultimate goal and the team's ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl. But it would be nice for him personally to get recognized in that light that some of these other great quarterbacks have been recognized in this sort of era with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen adds another 6 total touchdowns to his tally yesterday, now has 33 total touchdowns. And as you put on X, Twitter, only needs 7 more touchdowns in these last 4 games to be the only quarterback in history, only player in history to have 5 straight 40 touchdown seasons. He's still the only one to have 4. Did it 4 straight times. Breeze is the only other one with 3 to have done it more than twice. So it would be an epic sort of capping, I guess, to this run that he's on. And people will talk about the 1-yard touchdown runs and all this and that, but like he got him down the field in those positions. The dude accounted for, 420 plus yards of the team's offense, or I can't remember exactly what the number was, but 80 plus on the ground. 6 total touchdowns, on his way to potentially winning his first ever MVP. Obviously, 4 games to go. Some things can change, but certainly put himself in the driver's seat. And again, if you watch the game yesterday and you come away with thinking that he really needed to do anything more to help his team win, there's only so much this man can do. And he did everything he could once again to put the team on his back and put them in position to win. Now, this Josh Allen-led Bills team, 3 losses on the season. There are only 3 losses, all on the road to teams in the playoff mix: Ravens, Texans, and Rams. 3 very, very good teams. And the rest of the games, obviously, they have won. So to me, this is about Josh Allen's sort of momentum as we go into the last 4 games of the season and his momentum into the postseason, where he tries to get the ultimate goal, which I'm sure for him is the Super Bowl MVP and that Lombardi trophy. But yeah, Josh Allen on his way to being the first Bills MVP since Thurman Thomas, right, in the 90s. So my hat's off to Josh Allen. What more can you say? The guy did everything he could to help this team win that game, and he should be the MVP of the NFL this year.
Yeah, I mean, we were sitting here a couple of weeks ago questioning whether he would be able to reach 40 or not. It was looking like a long shot that he would tie Patrick Mahomes for the fewest amount of games to get to 250 touchdowns, but he closed that gap real quick. And he's now tied with Mahomes for the fewest games taken to get to 250 touchdowns. His 10th career 300-yard, 50 rushing game tied Steve Young, I think, for like first ever. Like every week he's just breaking records. First player ever to pass and run for 3 touchdowns a piece. He joined Cam Newton as like the only other quarterback to do this rushing while doing this passing. Like just every week it is something new for Josh Allen, and he had an awesome game. And again, another wasted effort. My one big thing, and I'm not going to lie to you, like I know this is cover 1 and there's a bunch of tape guys here and a bunch of film guys here and a bunch of guys who dive into the analytics and all that stuff. But this take here for my one big thing is really just a vibe thing. And that is that this defensive line for the Buffalo Bills just doesn't pass the vibe check with me. Gregory Rousseau has had a great season, but he was invisible against the LA Rams today. And he has a track record of going MIA in big games. You've got Von Miller out there kind of, I mean, he doesn't look bad. He looks springy and good, but he's kind of like that 40-year-old dude who is somehow hanging with the college kids playing rec league
I
basketball.
thought he looked the best out of all the defensive linemen, to be
Yeah.
honest, in that game.
And then you have undersized Ed Oliver, who has met the moment once this year, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs game. And then you can point to a play here or a play there from Daquan Jones. You can point to a play here, a play there from AJ Epinesa. Dwayne Smoot was playing great, but like at the end of the day, in my heart of hearts, I just know that they're going to disappear in the playoffs. I have almost no doubt in my mind that when the postseason comes, this defensive line will not meet the moment. They will disappear once again. And part of me, I think, has to realize that this was a rebuild year. The Bills did not have a lot of money this offseason. I think a lot of their draft capital and their free agency capital is going to go into the defense this offseason. So this defense that has been hanging in there this year, forcing turnovers, making second half adjustments, having good DVOA, even though I think a lot of that's going to go away in the playoffs, I don't really have a lot of faith in that to carry over into the postseason. I just don't. I can't tell you why. It's just a feeling. I think a lot of that the Bills are going to try to fix this offseason, but you
Are
look
they,
at
though? That's the
yeah,
question. Are they?
but are they? Because they've had so many cracks at it. McDermott and Bean have had so many cracks at fixing this defensive line. And you just look at Kansas City and Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, these power players, right? You look at Pittsburgh, the other team at the top of the AFC with us, JJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Alex Highsmith and all these other power players that they drafted the kid from Wisconsin whose name I'm blanking on, right? That we loved. You look at Baltimore, Travis Jones, who we love, Justin Madubuike, who we love, right? There's just all these dogs along the defensive lines of all these teams that the Buffalo Bills run into year after year after year, and we can't find those dogs of our own. And it's getting really frustrating. I'm racking my brain, like, what do we do about it? And my mind comes to maybe it's time for Sean McDermott to swallow his pride and go look for a defensive line whisperer, kind of go find the defensive line version of what Aaron Kromer has done for our offense. Who that is, I have no idea. But Eric Washington was dog shit, and Marcus West is somehow worse than dog shit because these guys are just disappearing in the biggest of moments.
And I'll say this, I mean, I don't know that does the trick, right? Because you would also think that would have to come with some kind of change in philosophy or change in scheme. And I just don't see that happening. And like we've said, like they've had several cracks at this. And so the fact that they really haven't kind of changed their approach, I would say, will tell me that this is just going to continue, right? I think this is just going to continue. And yes, Dwayne Carter looks promising. We'll see what happens there. They re-signed Daquan Jones in the offseason, but I think he's been a bit disappointing this year as well. There's zero pressure. And by the way, you talk about the film and analytics guys, the analytics back that up. The interior defensive line is getting absolutely zero pressure. They have one guy in the top 50 that qualifies as far as pass rush per snap rate, and they're just not getting it done. I thought there have been some moments in recent weeks. I thought that Ed Oliver had actually a decent sort of showing against the Colts, even though there wasn't much to show in the box score. But at the end of the day, like the plays that you make are what's going to have to matter. And they're paying him to be a guy that makes plays, not a guy that just gets penetration and, oh, look, might have a good rep or two here or there. Like he's regressed this year, in my opinion, from what he was last year. And I think that at the end of the day, like this defensive line is a huge the interior defensive line, especially, is a huge weakness going into the postseason when you end up potentially having to play teams like the Baltimore Ravens or the Kansas City Chiefs with Isaiah Pacheco back, or, I mean, even a team like the Houston Texans with Joe Mixon or the Pittsburgh Steelers with Najee Harris. Those teams could all give you trouble potentially in the playoffs. So it's good that there's still 4 games left. Maybe there's some tweaking they can do, but these are the guys they're going to roll with into the postseason. And while on a per down basis and on a scoring basis, they don't give up a ton of points on a rush yards per play, they're one of the worst teams in the league. And stylistically, this is who they are. And Tom Brady mentioned it in the broadcast, and we know this. They're aggressive, son of smaller side. They give up big plays, or they're stopping teams in the backfield. It's a very volatile run defense.
Pops Mafia comes in, says, need to draft a defensive tackle from Michigan. That man is going in the top 5. I don't know how many draft picks we have left after all the wheeling and dealing we made. I know we had like 15 or something heading into the season, and then we made some trades, but I would trade them all Ricky Williams style for Mason Graham from Michigan. That guy is going to be a stud. Talk about, those power players that I just mentioned. I think Mason Graham will sooner rather than later find his name in there in the conversation with some of the guys that I had just mentioned earlier in this segment. All right, let's transition now to data tracking. I'm not going to lie to you. I did not have time to go through and do a full vetting of the data. I don't have any of the explosive numbers in front of me. Just know it was a lot for both teams. But in terms of complementary football, time of possession, this is the big stat that really stuck out in this game and literally just makes you want to vomit. Rams 38.5 minutes time of possession in this football game to the Bills 21.5. You have the Rams going 11 of 15 on third down. At one point, they were 10 of 12. And they go obviously 1 for 1 on fourth down. Neither team turned the ball over, but realistically, the Bills turned it over once, and it was a big one, that block punt for a touchdown. Yep. So in terms of complementary football, no double dip either for the Buffalo Bills, just absolutely just taken to the woodshed by the LA Rams in every single complementary football category.
The time of possession really stood out. I mean, the time of possession really a factor of the Bills not being able to get off the field on third downs. I mean, like you mentioned, at one point the Rams were 10 for 11 on third downs. And then I think they were 11 for 13 at one point when Kupp caught that touchdown. That was on a third down, which should, in my mind, count as a conversion. 11 for 15 total at the end of the game. I mean, that's just really, really bad. I mean, the Bills were already sort of bottom half. They were bottom half of the NFL in defensive third down conversion rates allowed. But the fact of the matter is the Rams came into this game as the third worst third down offense in the NFL as far as conversion rate. Mm-hmm. And they basically probably just vaulted themselves maybe into the top half with that performance yesterday. So we said on the pregame, you got to get this team off the field on third down and get them out of their script, which is what they were doing all game, playing from ahead. They ended up taking the opening coin toss. Now, you might know, did the Bills win the toss and defer, or did the Rams take the toss? Okay, so either way, and I said in the pregame, if I was the Rams, I would take the ball and try to score on the opening drive. Well, either way, they got the ball first and they scored on the opening drive to set the tone that they were really playing from ahead the entire game, and the Bills never had a lead in this game. So, yeah, I think it all worked in their favor, and the third down conversions were just backbreaking. I never felt at any point in the game that the Bills were going to really stop a third down. That's how bad it got at some point. So that all led to this 17-minute discrepancy in time of possession, which in the NFL is huge, right? Because if you look at the overall course of a season, the top teams in time of possession are going to be on an average 33, 34 minutes. I mean, you're talking about a 17-minute disparity in this one. So pretty wild to me here.
Yeah, Pops Mafia comes in, says, can't run, hurt your time of possession. And man, the Buffalo Bills could not run this game. We're going to get to that in a little bit. First, let's we talked about one positive, Josh Allen. There's a couple other positives, stock ups to talk about. Really just 4, and there's some of the guys who caught the passes from Josh Allen. Our pass blocking was good. That was a positive in this game. Our offensive line continues to show that they can do that. Khalil Shakir, man, how fun is he? 5 catches, 106 yards, a touchdown. That touchdown catch was just insane. Like, I had people texting me that aren't even Bills fans, were like, because this is a national game, and they were just like, man, that Khalil Shakir is wild. Like, holy shit. Like, and then he goes and he makes that catch at the beginning of the fourth quarter as well to put us down on the goal line. He had his first drop in like 2 years in this game, but still went for 5 for 106. And cannot pay that man soon enough. He is Josh Allen's security blanket. I want that man to be a Buffalo Bill for life.
Yep. Second 100-yard game of the season for Shakir. Other one against Seattle. Now, he's not going to make the Pro Bowl or be an All-Pro probably, but the man deserves some credit, some kind of recognition
I
We
mean,
know
anyone
that
can be
he's
a
a
Pro Bowler at this point. Why not?
well, that's true. That's true. Um, but 8 targets, 5 catches, had the huge 51-yard touchdown. Yeah, that play down at the goal line where he kind of caught it on the sideline. At first, I thought that ball was intercepted. I'm not
Mhm.
like on the broad, and then all of a sudden he has it. I'm like, holy crap! How did he come up with that? Um, he's just a phenomenal player, and he's so good for what the Bills want to do on offense with some of these, uh, you know, mesh concepts and wide receiver screens, and just suits his game so
Mhm.
well that he's able to get all these extra yards after the catch. And super happy for him. We were obviously fans of his going back to the pre-draft process. I'm sure there's multiple air raid shows where we talked about him, talking about how he can get sneaky yards, and he's more than getting sneaky yards. He's getting massive yards after the catch as of late, and really kind of him and Josh Allen. And we'll talk about another stock up here in a minute. And Amari Cooper kept the Bills really in this game the entire afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, how about Amari Cooper? 6 catches, 95 yards. It looks like he's finally got some nice chemistry brewing with Josh Allen.
14
And
targets for
yeah,
him in this game. That's massive.
as Josh Allen, or excuse me, as Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid get their way work back into this offense, I don't think the passing game, or even once the running game figures it out, the running game are going to be the offense is not going to be the issue for this team in the postseason. It's probably going to be the other side of the ball and special teams that the Buffalo Bills will have to worry about. But Amari Cooper, that's big, right? Getting this guy, starting to get him the alpha workload and sort of the alpha targets, and making up for some lost time here.
Yeah, absolutely. The 14 targets, only 6 catches. There, I mean, some of those balls that Josh was throwing to Amari were certainly of the lower percentage variety, but
Mhm.
man, he made some nice catches down the sideline early, in traffic, through the hands of the corner, comes up with it. He has been, and we said going into this game, this could be an opportunity for him to kind of break out. And I would consider this a bit of a mini breakout for him. 6 catches for 95 yards on the 14 targets. I mean, there were games where Stephon Diggs on this team wasn't getting 14 targets. And I know this game was a shootout and all that, but
Mhm.
that's big for this team this year for any one guy to get that many targets. I mean, Khalil Shakir prior to as of 2 weeks ago, he only had 2 games where he was in double digit targets. So that's a massive workload for him as far as target share. Expect that to kind of continue to fluctuate a bit between these guys as Coleman comes back, but it's just another guy to have that you can kind of go to in a crunch time and crunch moments. And even in the short period of time that he's been here, he has made some pretty clutch catches, Amari
Mhm.
Cooper. Um, Even though the volume hasn't necessarily been there, he has made some catches in big moments, and it was nice to kind of see the volume come back or take up in this one. And I do think, yeah, you're right. I think if this offense gets Keon Coleman back, gets Dalton Kincaid back, figuring out, yes, how to integrate these guys back into the offense, fine. But this offense really shouldn't have any problems moving the ball through the air come playoff time.
Some nice games from Matt Collins as well. 4 for 57 and a touch. Can't say enough good things about the season that he's having. Ty Johnson, 2 for 55 and a touchdown. He was a nice little spark plug out of the backfield. And honestly, the Buffalo Bills didn't go to Ty Johnson enough in this game, to be honest. Like, we talked in the pregame about just how weak the Rams were covering running backs out of the backfield. I was surprised they didn't take more advantage of that. But we talked a little bit about this last week. Matt Collins is what Gabriel Davis should have been, right? Like, he can get after it in the run game. He can use his big body. He can make some clutch catches. But he's doing so as like the third or fourth or fifth option, not like
Mhm.
some guy who's expected to be the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 2. So another great game from Matt Collins and a nice little surprise game from Ty Johnson here.
Yeah, Matt Collins made that nice the catch, the over the shoulder catch on that
Mhm.
perfectly thrown ball from Josh Allen. And honestly, that deep ball, that was just an underthrow from Josh. Like, Mac
Yeah.
was there for that, and that was just an underthrown ball. He's been really efficient too with his targets. Really going back to when he first started getting more targets, I would say, going back to that Seattle game. He's just been really good with those. Puts up 57 yards, 14.3 yards per catch in the touchdown. He's kind of become, uh, I don't want to say a go-to weapon, but he's become kind of like a bit of a security blanket beyond Khalil Shakir on third downs and the like. So big props to Matt Collins, big
Mhm.
props to Ty Johnson. We said going into this game that the Bills really needed to use the running backs more in the passing game. A little bit of a disappointment that you only see 4 catches combined for Ty Johnson and James Cook, but obviously Ty Johnson had the big 41-yard screen play, and it was nice to see the Bills do use the screen, as we said in the pregame as well, on that touchdown. And Ty Johnson just continues to be reliable, to make plays when he's asked to make plays. He's like he's kind of like what you would consider like a I don't want to say a poor man's 3-down running back, but like he can do it all. He can play all 3 downs. They trust him in pass protection. He's on the field a ton in the 2-minute drill, and it's just a nice option to have him if you're the Bills. And it was a nice sort of re-signing for him, as we said in the offseason, would be cheap. No real reason not to bring him back, and I'm certainly happy they did bring him back.
All right, time to get into it. The stock down, plenty to talk about in this segment. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills defense. We already said it once on this show, 38 and a half minutes time possession for the Rams. Let's just take a look at their drive charts. To start the game, 12 plays, 41 rush yards, 29 pass yards, 6:34 off the clock, touchdown. Then they get the ball again after the Buffalo Bills match the touchdown. They go 10 plays, 28 in the ground, 37 in the air for 442. They make a field goal. Then they block the punt and they go up even bigger. The Buffalo Bills manage to come back, score a touchdown, but then they go 14 plays, 20 yards on the ground, 52 in the air, 747 touchdown. Bills get the ball. Bills go 5 and out. Rams get the ball, 4 plays. Oh, that's the end of the half. But then we have third quarter. Here's the thing, right? The Buffalo Bills are known for making all these adjustments in the second half. This is how the Rams came out in the second half. 12 plays, touchdown. 7 plays, touchdown. Fourth quarter, they finally had their first 3 and out of the game. Then they went 13 plays, touchdown. Like, they just completely own this team from start to finish. There was no seemingly like there was no response or pride from the Buffalo Bills. At no point in this game did the defense look embarrassed at what was going on. At no point in this game did they look like they were willing to do anything about what was being done to them. It was probably the worst defensive performance I've ever seen from a Buffalo Bills team since Tom Brady rocked us on Sunday Night Football for 40, 50 points. Like, that's probably the worst defensive effort I've seen since then. This spans beyond the Sean McDermott era.
I'd have to agree. I mean, I certainly think it was the worst performance in the Sean McDermott era, other than maybe the Colts trouncing the Jonathan Taylor game. You could maybe point to that one as a bad game, or even the 13 seconds game, if you want to go into the playoffs. But regardless, this was a team, like we mentioned, went 11 for 15 on third downs. You never felt like they were going to be stopped. Nakua was doing anything and everything he wanted to this secondary. There was zero pressure on Matthew Stafford all game. No sacks, obviously, for either team. He was on his spot all game. The one time the Bills did get pressure, he did make a bad throw, but it was literally once in the entire game. When the Bills did try to bring extra guys, they couldn't get home and they couldn't get Stafford off his spot. And so it felt like they had no answer. And I don't know if it was they weren't showing pride, or if they just anything they were trying to do to make small adjustments just wasn't working, but they literally had no answer for Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. And it certainly seemed like it was one of those games that it didn't matter what you did, like it wasn't going to work. And Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and Puka Nakua really had your number the entire game. And you had no answer. You literally had no answer. I think adjustments, whatever you want to say, like switch to man, whatever, they did do that. It wasn't working either. It starts to me up front, whether it's the D-line, linebackers, mostly the D-line starting, up front and not being able to get any kind of pressure whatsoever on Matthew Stafford, and he just carved him up. He had an exceptional game. The Rams executed essentially flawlessly. And Matthew Stafford is a probable Hall of Famer. I would say he's a Hall of Fame quarterback that just carved you up in a game that the Rams are obviously on the ascent and look to be a team that could do some damage in the playoffs. And you just got absolutely embarrassed. And there's really no answer for it other than you had no answer for it. So just pathetic, really, defensive effort in my mind.
I mean, we talked about on the pregame show a little bit, right? We have a lot of respect for this Rams team. They were not healthy. Now they have a really good offensive line, and that offensive line is healthy. I think they have a really good defensive line. The rest of that defense, Buffalo Bills carving them up showed exactly how the rest of that defense is. But they have Nakua, they have Cooper Kupp, they have Demarcus Robinson. They're going to get Tyler Higbee back at some point. They got Kyren Williams, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay. Like, that's going to be a good offense, not an offense that you're going to want to go against in the postseason. This will not. Everyone wanted to point to they've only had one 30-point game this year. How embarrassing. Well, if they had been healthy since the start of the year, they would have had more.
Yeah, Nakua's been out almost like the entire year, other than the last few weeks.
He's been on IR. Kupp has been on IR.
Yeah.
Half their offensive line has been on IR. Like, come on. Like, and to say the Rams offensive line isn't great, that's a lie, RJ. They're awesome. Like, they are a good offensive line. They spent a lot of money there. They have a really good scheme. That's a good offensive line. When they're healthy. Now, have they had a lot of injuries and just a lot of platooning of guys over the course of the last couple of years? Yes. But when they are healthy, that is a freaking good offensive line, because that's what Sean McVay wants. And Sean McVay is an offensive genius. So to me, I wasn't shocked at all. I mean, I was shocked at just the sheer amount of trouncing that they did, but I wasn't shocked that their offense had some pulse to go score 30 plus points. That didn't surprise me in the least bit. But no sacks on Matthew Stafford. You mentioned it. The delayed blitz just wasn't working. He was picking apart the zone. They were putting up his stats against zone. At one point, he was like 10 for 13 for like 2 touchdowns. It was disgusting. Whenever they went man, Rasul Douglas and Teron Johnson and Christian Benford would just get absolutely pantsed. Like, they would just commit DPI on almost every play and still lose their matchup to Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp. Like, Taron Johnson was embarrassed. Like, that was maybe one of his worst performances as a pro. He was a punching bag, an absolute punching bag. And so was Rasul Douglas. Maybe I shouldn't have thrown Christian Benford in there because I didn't really notice him as much, but those two guys were absolute punching bags all game. Matt Milano was a punching bag all game. Ed Oliver was a punching bag the whole game. Like, absolute no-shows for these guys. No clutch plays. They couldn't force a sack. They couldn't force a turnover. They couldn't do anything. Just the early down run success, I think, had a lot to do with it. The early down run success meant the Buffalo Bills had to start run blitzing, and that really opened up a lot in the passing game for the LA Rams, and it just snowballed from there. But no halftime adjustments. Everyone was expecting it. Never happened, and we're kind of talking in circles here now. But Matt Milano getting worked over 2 weeks in a row. The Buffalo Bills did not attempt to insert Dorian Williams, so the Bills are going to keep allowing Matt Milano to try to figure that out. And when Rasul Douglas went down, Jamarcus Ingram, I thought he played well, but BFL Mafia News comes in and says clutch coverage on Puka somehow got called the PI, no consistency in the refs. I would agree with that too, but also it's interesting that, I don't know, when Rasul went down, maybe you would have wanted a guy like Kyrie Elam, and he wasn't available to you because he was inactive on game day. So just all around a lot of questions if you're the Buffalo Bills, and a lot of things that you got to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I think said it before, but it started up front for me, like no pressure. This team who came in as the number one turnover differential team in the NFL. I said on the pregame, like at some point, like, yes, this team has been good at forcing turnovers, but I don't think you can always count on that, right? Sometimes they're a bit fluky, sometimes they're not. Yes, this team has been good at doing it, but in this game, forced none. And at times they've been fortunate to force turnovers in some spots where they've gotten into some sticky situations and kind of turn momentum. I mean, the 49ers game, they got that fumble recovery on, as the 49ers were about to score. And in other games that's happened as well, where they've gotten some turnovers in opportune times. They were not opportunistic as well in this game, right? Like, it just, none of it worked. And, We're gonna get to another stock down here in a second, but yeah, it just the game plan, whether that was flawed, whether they came in kind of with the same approach, like it didn't matter. Today they just didn't have it, and I agree with you on Elam. I thought that it would have been nice to have him, but also I'm sure they didn't predict that they were going to get torched this badly. So I'm not so much upset about him being inactive because of what happened. It's more about like you can't get a first round pick to be active on game day. Then, I mean, again, he had sort of momentum in training camp and had some nice some plays, but he just can't get on the field right now.
So we've talked about the stock down defense. The stock down offense, we've kind of touched on it already. I mean, they didn't convert either end of their double dip. They couldn't convert a 3rd and 2 on that first drive to try and get some points going into half. Then Allen missed a wide open Khalil Shakir on the second drive, led to a 3 and out. That's one, knock on the offense. And the other major knock on the offense was James Cook, 6 carries, 20 yards, no running game, no effort to run, really no push in the run game at all. Obviously, the game script and playing from behind affected that as well. I'm going to give that a 1-game pass and see. Hopefully we can get a run game going against the Detroit Lions, because I think we will need it. And we can address that more if they can't find a running game against the Detroit Lions. So let's get into special teams. And then we obviously got to talk about Coach McDermott and some of his decisions as well. I know that's what most people want to talk about, and we've managed to go 41 minutes without it. So thankfully, but Matthew Smiley and this Buffalo Bills special teams unit, probably the biggest play of the game. Like, everyone wants to point to like Sean McDermott and, calling a timeout or this or that. Like, let's be real here. Like, if Reed Ferguson just does his job and blocks that punt and doesn't allow that punt block, probably a whole completely different ball game. That was really the turning point of the game. Reed Ferguson got absolutely worked. And then the second thing is, when we had a chance to get the ball back, 9 guys on the field for the last punt. The game plan called for a block. There was no one there to go block it because 2 guys were not on the field. Matthew Smiley, last year he had 12 men on the field, cost us the Denver game. This year there's the punt block and the 9 men on the field, and just he continues to puke all over himself. He should not have been retained as special teams coordinator. Honestly, he should have been fired this morning, and they should have promoted whatever assistant or brought in some veteran from outside the building. He doesn't deserve to have a job today. He shouldn't have a job today. It's honestly embarrassing that he is still employed by the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. And then, as Brian says, then we don't even field the punt with no time left because they only had 9 guys.
There's no block.
So there's
Sean
McDermott
like does not usually throw people under the bus. He was very quick to point out, like, the fuck am I supposed to do? He sent 9 guys out there. Like, he was very quick to point that out in his presser today.
He's quick to point that out, but then he talks about how much this means to Matthew Smiley. Like, come on, man. Like, we're 8 years in now. Like, there's gotta be some kind of accountability. I mean, last year you had you fired Ken Dorsey in the middle of the season, the offensive coordinator. You're telling me you can't get rid of this special teams coordinator after an issue like that? Now, I know it's a little bit of a scapegoating because of what the defense did, but like, that block punt was a huge turning point in the game. It was at that point, what was it, 10-7? And then they block and score that punt and become 17-7. And then all of a sudden you definitely can't necessarily truly kind of maybe stick to the run game, which, by the way, the Rams came in giving about 193 yards per game on the ground in the last 3 games. So yeah, I'll give them a pass for 1 game. It was still pretty pathetic on the run game, but on the commitment to the run game. But yeah, that plus the play at the end, you go back to the Denver game last year, like, it has culminated in just some pretty bad special teams.
Worst unit in the league last year.
By the way, also, and I know this was a snow game, you give it some big returns to Deebo Samuel in the 49ers game as well. So I'll give him a slight pass on that one, but man, it's been bad. Everyone sees it too. Like, I feel like it's a fairly, I would say, as unanimous as you can be in Bills Mafia, because there's quite a lot of factions of different opinions. The disdain for Matthew Smiley might be one of the most unanimous opinions of content creators, fans, whatever.
It's up there with the love of Josh Allen. So
It's up there. It might be number 2. It might be number 2 because, man, that guy has had a rough go, and, yeah, it probably was a
Xavier Gibson on Monday Night Football last year,
oh, yeah,
overtime.
first game of the year, yeah, yep. Oh, yeah.
It
So,
sucks so bad.
yep, it's pretty bad, so
So wait, he said in his post game press conference that he cares a lot.
no, I think it was today, and someone put it in the comment section. We could probably find it. Here it is from Pops. McDermott says he has faith in Smiley because he knows it means a lot to him, and that was apparently said
The
in his
Buffalo
press
Bills
conference.
mean a lot to me. Do they want to put me on the payroll?
Special teams coordinator.
I, I'll do whatever they want, man. I'll clean toilets. Put me on the payroll. The Bills mean a lot to me. Sean McDermott, put me on the payroll. If that's all it takes to be on the payroll, is it just means a lot to you? Put you on the. You should be on the payroll. You care.
It means a lot to me. It does.
Comment section cares. Put them on the payroll. Put everyone on the payroll.
I got a Brandon Bean. I got a signed helmet of yours right back there. Why don't you?
The Sabres are in the midst of blowing another multi-goal lead. So, Terry, sell the Sabres and put everyone in this chat on the payroll.
Yeah,
we care.
You know, I especially want RJ and Pops and Brian Bowers on the payroll. All those people need to be on the payroll. Let's get them on there.
And then there's Sean McDermott. Obviously, it's something that a lot of people want to hammer home. I'm not going to be one of those people. Like you mentioned it. I don't know if you mentioned it when we were talking before the show started or at the top of the show, but just living at just the radicalized end of every spectrum. Like I'm not there. Right. I can't get worked up about it. The accepting the penalty, the goal line thing, we'll talk about it, but I can't bring myself to get worked up about it. I was mad at the Houston game, but even the Houston game, I felt like we lost that game before it came down to all that stuff. Just like this game, we lost this game before it came out and all this stuff. Reed Ferguson is more responsible for the Bills' loss. Bobby Babbage is more responsible for the Bills' loss. Rasul Douglas, Taron Johnson, Ed Oliver, they're more responsible for the Buffalo Bills losing. Now, obviously, the caveat to all of that is Sean McDermott oversees the whole football team. So he's in charge of all of it. So obviously, it's all going to fall on his shoulders. But at the end of the day, some people are going to have gotten worked up over it. I just can't. If he does it again in the playoffs, let's talk. If it costs us it cost us the 1 seed. Like, no, did it? Like, I think it's way too soon to say it cost us the 1 seed. So to me, if he does it again in the playoffs,
the Chiefs might not lose another game, right? I mean, I know they have a tough schedule ahead, but if they don't lose another game, it wouldn't matter anyway, right? I mean, so
to me, we'll talk about the two decisions, but to me, the whole fire Sean McDermott's not the coach that gets over. Talk to me in January, man. Like, if it happens again in January, let's have this conversation. But let's take a look at the two. Let's start with the penalty, because that was the one that I think was the worst of the two decisions, to be honest with you. Accepting a hold on the Rams' final drive. It was 3rd and 5. There was a 2-yard loss. He accepts the hold, puts them I wouldn't say out of field goal range. It would have been like a 56, 57 yarder, which would have been a career long for their kicker. Gave them an extra down. They did not play it aggressive at all. Allowed the Rams to get right back up where they were. In fact, further than where they were. After they gained 15 yards or so, or 10 yards or so, it became 4th and 5.
Yeah,
they decided to go for it.
It would have been 4th and 6 if they had declined it, and it ended up being 4th and 5. So it was a 1-yard difference.
I think they would have gone for it either way. The only thing is, I wish having them backed up, the Bills would have been a little bit more aggressive and tried to go for a sack or something. They just dropped back into their little zone coverage that was getting eaten alive all game and let Matthew Stafford cook. There was no real attempt to do anything with moving them back.
And that's my issue. I don't necessarily have an issue. I would have declined it. I said that on Twitter as well. I said, I'm declining this penalty right now. I'm not giving them another chance on 3rd down. I don't care how long the 3rd down is. My issue was, if you are going to accept that penalty and push them back, what's the point of dropping into a soft prevent style defense where you're just going to give up 10 or 11 yards anyway, and they're going to be right back where they were, and it costs you 30, 40 seconds of game clock? That's where I have an issue. If you're going to back them up, then back them up and be aggressive and try to create a negative play. And if you give it up, well, that's the reason you accepted the penalty anyway because you wanted to ensure they didn't get any points as opposed to just giving up 10 to 11 yards anyway. Why are you calling that type of defense when they would have been 4th and 6 anyway? So if you're going to give up, if you're okay giving up 10 or 11 yards, what was the point of accepting the penalty? That's my whole thing.
And then you have the decision at the goal line to QB sneak it when obviously most people said you should have passed it because you don't want to take that a lot time off the clock. And more importantly, you don't want to use the timeout. You want to save your timeouts because the Bills ultimately punted with 7 seconds left. If they had 3 timeouts, the Rams would have been punting with 50 seconds left, 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
And the Bills would have had more of a shot to get a field goal wins it, and it's indoors. So the Bills would have had a shot with Josh Allen to get into field goal range and win it. But also, again, not mad with the decision, mad with the execution / play call. Sean McDermott was right. He first of all, he came out today and said he would have done differently with time as a looking back. He said he would have called a pass play, but I'm not even mad at the run. They've been pushing all year. I think this game was the first game where it didn't work. It was like literally 100% effective, but they went out there and they ran it. Like they started in the shotgun, then moved into the tush push, and it wasn't their normal QB. It just nothing was normal about it. If they would
went
just
to the
gone
right
out there,
instead of the left.
yeah, like if they just would have gone out there and did what they normally done, I think they would have punched it in on first down, like we all expected them to, or like they did the next play. But they just got weird and tried to get fancy with it. I don't know. So I feel like this whole discussion would be moot if the Bills had just executed the play properly and they would have scored on the first play. Then it wouldn't have mattered whether it was a run play or a pass play. We would have had our timeout.
And if you're gonna do that, that's I will say this. I would have preferred the normal tush push to the left. Okay, fine. Like I'm actually not even super mad about them trying. Like looking back, I mean, I was like, how do you call a run there in the moment yesterday? But I'm also like, well, don't call the timeout, right? That's the thing. Get up there and either spike it or run a quick play. Like you probably, like the problem was you had all these guys on a pile. It was going to probably take you 10, 15 seconds to get up and spike it and or run another play. But that still would have been better than using the timeout, because if you do get up and spike it and then it's third down and you have 2 shots to get it in the end zone, or if you get up and run a play and it's incomplete and you take 10, 15 seconds off the clock, you still have 30, maybe 40 seconds and all your timeouts, or you can use all your timeouts to stop them on the ensuing drive and still have 30 to 40 seconds left, even if you have to waste 10 seconds getting up there and spiking it or running another play. The one thing you couldn't do there was call the timeout. So the problem I have wasn't necessarily that they tried the tush push or whatever, because they have been so good at it. It's that they weren't ready in the instance that they didn't get it to get back up to the line and do something else. That was my biggest issue. And that's coaching as well, by the way. So you can be mad about the play call. Fine. I'm more mad about kind of what happened thereafter, which was you weren't ready to get back up on the ball. You burned the timeout in panic because you didn't know what to do. You didn't have a contingency plan. You didn't have a second play called or a contingency of what would happen if we don't score here. And that's my biggest gripe with that in that situation, as opposed to the actual play call. I know McDermott, as RJ said, looked pissed when they ran it, but like you got to be ready to get back on the ball there. You cannot use the timeout in that situation one way or the other.
All right, that should just about do it for us this evening, Dave. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to talk about before we head out of here? I know Time comes in with a great comment. He says, pretty sad when Jordan Phillips looks like a noticeable upgrade. He was obviously inactive in this game, and the Bills defensive linemen who were active did not step up to the plate for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my final thoughts here are you better be ready for Detroit, because you thought the Rams were converting on third downs, and they actually only ran it for 3.3 yards a carry. When Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are staring you in the face against the way that defensive line just performed, that's not going to be pretty if you're the Bills and you're not ready for that one. So you gotta kind of regroup and be ready for this Detroit game. A Detroit team who's going to have extra rest, hasn't left their building in a month. They played at home on Thanksgiving. They played at home against the Packers. They got another 10-day rest now before this Bills game. It's not ideal situation for the Bills as you're
and the
going
Bills
into Detroit.
come back from the West Coast too.
Yeah, and they're coming back from the West Coast, and Detroit's been at home for about a month now. It'll be about a month by the time this game happens. So it's going to be rough. And you just you show me something. Show me something this week that kind of, get your dignity back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned at the top of the show, Chiefs made a deal with Satan. They moved to 12-1 on the season. They're 10-0 in one-score games this year. The Bills are 3-2 in one-score games this year. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully this therapy session did something for you. We thank you guys so much for the comments in the comment section. Again, you guys really help us drive this show, drive some of the narratives and the segments that we talk about. So we always appreciate you guys, especially Victory Mondays are sweet with you, and therapy session Mondays are just as sweet with you guys here to take some of this burden off with us. So until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!